we are like obviously at like opposite ends of the spectrum on terms of actually writing. In that I was like, just a freelance animation writer who wound up writing like a jillion of the early episodes, and at that time there was no home video. That was just starting to happen, but it hadn't really happened yet. Wouldn't happen for about 2 more years, and these were just a kids show and widely reviled as toy commercials, which is what they were. And yet because there were so many in what I call season 1 and what everybody else calls seasons 1 and 2, there was so many characters, so many, just sheer volume of episodes, 65 altogether in those 2 seasons combined, that there was sort of a sense of like a certain amount of myth making and a certain amount of like myth destroying, because as somebody who's kind of a snarky contrarian by nature, I was always like, oh, Hasbro takes this stuff way too seriously. I mean, come on. So anytime I sort of alternately was like building up the myth with stories like War Dawn, which basically is the origin story of Optimus Prime, although if you were at our panel yesterday, you heard me explain how that was actually the last element of the story to fall into place, which was myth building, and then stuff like The Girl Who Loved Power Glide, which pretty much completely undercut any sort of epic grandeur that they were going for. But it was, to most of us involved, it was like, okay, it's a gig. They're doing 65. There's a lot of work. Let's just go get it. And nobody had a clue. I mean, I might have had a clue that as a toy line and as a thing that we now would call a franchise, we didn't really call it that back then, this might go on for a long time. But nobody thought they're still going to be parsing these episodes 35 years later and finding continuity errors and cell level errors and and yeah, I gave the Constructicons an entirely different origin story than the origin story that some other writer on some other script that nobody ever gave me to read because I just worked out of my house had given them. Because if I did something like that, I just assumed that the people at Hasbro or my story editor at Marvel, if it was out of continuity, they'd fix it. And they never, I mean, there's even in I did an episode called Secret of Omega Supreme, where it was basically, they said, do an Omega Supreme episode. I went, okay, who's that? And they handed me the character sheet on Omega Supreme, and this is not an exaggeration, this is the God's truth. The entire character description of Omega Supreme that was provided us by Sunbow/Hasbro, because they were basically the same company, the entire character description was taciturn, period. So it was both incredibly appropriate that they gave a one-word character description to a taciturn character who doesn't speak much, and entirely unhelpful. So when I wrote the episode, I just had him talking like a regular guy. So Bryce Malek, my story editor, had to like jump in and add this little bit at the beginning where when Omega Supreme starts to tell basically the story of his friggin' life, the guy who doesn't talk, Optimus Prime, as per Bryce's dialogue, says, just this once, couldn't you just talk like a regular guy? Omega Supreme goes, okay, well, just this once. So we were just, groping our way blindly through, just trying to get them done in time because the schedule was horrific. And whereas, well, first of all, you're writing for an entirely different medium where you have much more freedom. And I don't really follow the comics anymore because I'm a grown-up now. No. I actually, people ask me that. It's like, well, did you see Don Glut's episode where this, and I'm like, dude, it was bad enough having to watch my episode. Why should I watch everybody else's? But you're like literal. I mean, I have to assume you can like just do your thing with the characters, and I kind of did that, but I kind of had to also do Hasbro's thing.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. I mean, maybe I was thinking about listening to you talk, and maybe there is more method than madness to us talking at the same time, being on the same panel, because as you said,
please tell me that's
the medium
true.
Are different. Because I was and am a fan of yours, and I was a kid when your episodes aired.
So was I.
Yeah. But in the UK, there wasn't. The first few episodes were chopped up and spread over like 5 days.
Is that what was that mini? What is
the Whack-A-Day or something similar to that? It was part of all the Roland Rat.
Right. Yeah.
But only the first handful, and then after that, we had to rely on home video releases. And yours tended to be the ones they picked to. Because it wasn't the whole series released on video, it was just, I don't know, about 20%. But, War Dawn...
Which is pretty much what the percentage I wrote of the original series, so, yeah.
But, even I don't know what I would have been, 8 or 9. But obviously, your name would come up at the start, and others, the writers would come up, and but you knew if it was a David Wise episode, it was going to be good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my theory as to why we're together is because a lot of your episodes, as you said, were either sort of world building, they sort of shifted the foundations or built new ones,
right,
that other people developed, or they were like the Girl Who Loved Power Glide, thematically very different and sort of frothy and funny and
I got bored, frankly.
And those are the things which I like doing in More Than Meets the Eye and Lost Light. So I like to build on the mythos or the mythos.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. But then it's fun to just turn around and just chop it off at the kneecaps and go, okay, let's go nuts.
And that, yeah. Or if I contradicted myself or wrote something which contradicted another comic, then I'd be hounded out. That'd be the end of it.